that brings us to chapter 9, which is all about the second Passover. Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, "Let the children of Israel keep the Passover at its appointed time. On the 14th day of this month at twilight, you shall keep it at its appointed time. According to all its rites and ceremonies, you shall keep it." So Moses told the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at twilight in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so the children of Israel did. So far, the Lord speaks to Moses, Moses speaks to the people, and the people obey. All right, so they're doing well so far. And here they're talking about the Passover. Now, Israel celebrated the first Passover when they left Egypt. Now, 1 year later, right, the first month of the second year, God is commanding them to keep the Passover a second time. Previously, they had the blood of the lamb on the doorpost, and the spirit of death passed over their homes, and all of the Israelites were spared. That was back in Egypt. And now they're being reminded of what God did for them, how God judged Egypt and put a plague on Egypt. All the firstborn died, but Israel was spared. And so here they are instructed to do this, and Israel obeys. One thing to note is that at this time when they are supposed to celebrate the second Passover, there are some people who are ceremonially unclean or away from the camp, and they are unable to participate in this Passover. So when they go to Moses and explain what their case is, Moses goes to God, and God responds to Moses and says that those who are unclean at the Passover, those who are not in the immediate surroundings of the camp, they could still keep the feast, but they would do it 1 month later on the 14th day of the second month, right? So everybody was supposed to keep the feast. This was put into place for those who were unable to keep it at the same time as all of the community of Israel. And it still respected God's holiness and his principles for ritual purity. But if there were those who were there who were clean, they didn't keep the Passover, the punishment was very, very grave. Those people who fell in that category, they would bear their own sin. Now, in the Passover, there was a Passover lamb that would bear the sin of the people. But at this time, if they were there and did not partake or didn't want to partake, they would have to bear their own sin. So God wanted everybody to partake in this Passover. Even those who were strangers among Israel, they could keep the Passover with the Jewish people. So verses 15 to 19. Now on the day that the tabernacle was raised up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of the testimony, from evening until morning. It was above the tabernacle like the appearance of fire. So it was always. The cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. Whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle, after that the children of Israel would journey. And in the place where the cloud settled, the children of Israel would pitch their tents. At the command of the Lord, the children of Israel would journey, and at the command of the Lord, they would camp. As long as the cloud stayed above the tabernacle, they remained encamped. Here we're seeing how God is going to direct the Israelites in their journey. There is the cloud and there's the fire. When the cloud is on the tent, then they are supposed to stay. When the cloud is removed from the tent and moves, they are supposed to move. And they follow the cloud or the fire until it stops, and then they know that is where God wants them to be. So they have the direction of God. They've been ordered and organized by God. They have been cleansed. They have been blessed. They've been set apart. God has done everything that is needed for them to be prepared to go into the promised land. And that's just the awesome thing about God, because he gives the promise. He leads you in the journey of preparation so that you can obtain the promise. And then even when you get into the promise, he is the one who is with you. So at no point are you left alone. And it is just for us to see that, to honor that, to embrace that, and also to move in the way that God has prescribed for us to go. And that requires obedience and dependence. They wouldn't know when the cloud was going to get up. They wouldn't know if this was the day that they were going to move. They wouldn't know how long they would be on the move for. They just had to trust God. They had to respond to his presence and trust him with all of their hearts. And that brings us to chapter number 10, the final chapter for this session. And it's all about further preparation for their departure from Sinai towards the promised land. So the first part, it's about 2 silver trumpets. So let me read. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, make 2 silver trumpets for yourself. You shall make them of hammered work. You shall use them for calling the congregation and for directing the movement of the camps. When they blow both of them, all the congregation shall gather before you at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. But if they blow only one, then the leaders, the heads of the divisions of Israel, shall gather to you. When you sound the advance, the camps that lie on the east side shall then begin their journey. When you sound the advance the second time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall begin their journey. They shall sound the call for them to begin their journeys. And when the assembly is to be gathered together, you shall blow, but not to sound the advance. The sons of Aaron, the priests, shall blow the trumpets, and they shall be to you as an ordinance forever throughout your generations. When you go to war in your land against the enemy who oppresses you, then you shall sound an alarm with the trumpets, and you will be remembered before the Lord your God, and you will be saved from your enemies. And also, in the day of your gladness, in your appointed feasts, and at the beginning of your months, you shall blow the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, and they shall be a memorial for you before your God. I am the Lord your God. All right, so these are 2 trumpets that God has instructed Moses that he would get them built. And they are to be used to mobilize the people, also to send direction to the people, warning to the people, and also to send a message to God in a sense that when they're in a time of battle and they sound the trumpets, God will remember them, God will direct his full attention to them, and they will be victorious. So these are very distinct trumpets. They're not made from like a ram's horn. If you know anything about a shofar, that the ram's horn that is blown on certain days, especially the Day of Atonement, this is not that. This is made out of silver and hammered silver, and so it would have taken some time and some skill to do. Moses is instructed of how to use it as well. So there is the sound of the advance, a particular pattern that would be used at a particular time when they are ready to move, how they would blow once, and then Judah would go blow again, the next tribe would go. And so what's happening is that the people have to pay attention. God is so practical. Okay, in our days, we have the intercom system, we have bullhorns, we have mics and PA systems and all that. At this time, there was none of that. So God gives them a tool for them to be able to communicate with one another and also to just convey important messages very, very quickly. And if you ever get a chance to look it up on the internet, these were very big horns, okay? Not the little small things that you play in primary school. These were big horns. The priests were the ones responsible for learning how to play it and also for using it in the various times. So, verse 11 to 13, now it came to pass on the 20th day of the 2nd month in the 2nd year that the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle of the testimony. And the children of Israel set out from the wilderness of Sinai on their journeys. Then the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran. So they started out for the first time according to the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses. All of the preparation, and God gives them everything they need. And now the cloud has been taken up. It's time to move. And Moses is careful to follow all the commands of God, and also remember the different families in the tribe of Levi, the Kohathites, the Merarites, the Gershonites. They know what they're doing. Aaron and his sons are coming. Ithamar is giving directions. Eleazar is doing directions, so that everybody's starting to be mobilized. But only after God has taken the time to give them the instructions and the directions. And so far, listen, the Israelites, they're obeying. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're following Moses. They're following God. And it's good up to now. They're getting ready to make the first part of their journey. Let me read verses 33 to 36 for you. So they departed from the mountain of the Lord on a journey of 3 days. And the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them for the 3 days journey to search out a resting place for them. Pause. That's the presence of the Lord going forward, going forward. They put the presence of the Lord first because they're depending on him to guide them, to lead them, to be with them. Verse 34, and the cloud of the Lord was above them by day when they went out from the camp. So it was, whenever the ark set out, Moses said, rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. And when it rested, he said, return, O Lord, to the many thousands of Israel. Moses knew where his help was lying. It was in God, and he was calling on God to defend them, to be with them, and to lead them and to guide them. This is the beginning of their movements. They're moving towards the land of Canaan, the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the land that the Lord said was theirs. And they had left Egypt and slavery, as they came out as slaves, as a mixed multitude, as a disorganized bunch, wealthy because they left with the wealth of Egypt, but they had a lot of work that needed to be done in their hearts and on them as a community. God had them in the wilderness, pulling out Egypt out of their hearts, giving them laws, giving them commands, guidelines, instructions, setting up a structure for his presence to dwell, putting into place the Levitical priesthood. Everybody in their place, organized, ordered, and ready for what God has for them. Israel is marching as an organized, prepared, positioned nation. In this process, they have been cleansed, they've been purified, they've been set apart, they've been blessed, they've been numbered. The priests have learned how to function, and the people have an expectation and a hope to place their feet on the land that God has promised them. And even as they're getting ready to go, Moses's brother-in-law, right? His brother-in-law Hobab is getting ready to leave and go back to his father's house. Moses asks him to stay. Initially, he says no, but then he consents because he knows that he definitely needs his assistance in what he's doing. Just his skills of being able to find water and food and things for fuel and all of that, he would need that. He's not asking Hobab to tell him where to go or how to get there. That's God's job. But he could use his particular skill set along the way. And so he does come along, and the people are going. They are going, and we're going to learn more about them in the next few chapters. In this section, there are a few main figures that rise to the forefront, so we want to just talk about them briefly. Number one, Moses, of course, he is the leader. He's talking to God face to face. He's hearing God's voice. He's the one who's relaying the instructions and communicating the will of God to the people. We definitely see Aaron, who is the high priest, but there is particular mention of Aaron's third and fourth born sons, Eleazar and Ithamar. Now they're rising in leadership. They are the leader of the Levites and also supervise the transport of the tabernacle and the preparation of all of the items. And later on, Eleazar will eventually become the chief of all the Levites. He'll be the one who is going to take over from his father, Aaron. We also see the Levites. Before, it was a particular family, the family of Aaron and his sons who were highlighted. But now we're seeing all the Levites who are consecrated and set apart for the service of the tabernacle. And we, of course, see the people of Israel who are being organized, being ordered into a nation with a comprehensive set of instructions. You're seeing a governmental system starting to form, and they are in movement towards their promised land, part of the covenant that God made with their forefather Abraham. Which leads us to our main themes. In our main themes, covenant is there once again. All of this is happening because of covenant. God has made his promise, and that promise is not being broken for anything. And so as he's made this promise to Abraham, he has ratified it. He has built upon it. He has explained it. He's done what he's done, and he's faithful. He's faithful to do what he has promised to do. And so because of that, the Israelites will need to obey God. So that's another theme, obedience. Obedience is key because God knows what he's doing. And as they are being shaped into the people of God, the nation of God, the possession of God, they must obey God in the process. Third theme that comes to the forefront is preparation, right? God is very clear about the preparation that is needed for the thing that they have desired. As they move towards that promised land, there's preparation. They're getting prepared in their tribes, in their order, in their organization by doing Passover. The first time they did Passover, they were leaving Egypt. Now they're doing Passover. They're leaving the wilderness of Sinai, moving closer to the promised land. Last theme is organization and order. God highlights that in this section, that to make them into who he's called them to be requires order, organization, which includes submission and dependence on God. So we have arrived at the ending of this session number 14, chapters 1 through 10 of the book of Numbers. And I thank you for being with me at this time. We return next week with the next 10 chapters of this book as we follow the Israelites in their journey forward. So as you go, remember to subscribe to our channel, share the video, send us your comments and your questions, and partner with us in prayer and also with your financial resources so that we can keep this program, we can keep this project moving forward, that many people will come to know who God is, who Jesus is, the gospel will be shared, the truth of the word of God will be released in this world through every media outlet that is possible. So God bless you and keep you. Dr. Michelle signing off for another week. It was my pleasure to be with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week for another session in Through the Bible with Dr. Michelle and friends.